They say that a good logo should be simple enough that you can draw it from memory. Do you reckon you could draw the Wikipedia logo from memory? Hello Rebrand gang and welcome to episode 16 of Rebrand Everything. Today we're going to be creating 5 new logo options for Wikipedia and you can vote for your favourite in the poll. Let's go. So the current Wikipedia logo looks like this. As you can see, it's a jigsaw globe, but some of the pieces at the top are missing, and this is actually to symbolise the fact that Wikipedia is never finished. It's constantly being updated with more information every single day, so they've shown that in the logo. Although I visit Wikipedia regularly, I don't think I could have drawn the logo from my memory. I feel like that might be because there's just so much detail in it that it kind of gets lost into a grey blur in my mind. I remember the word mark beneath it, but I'd probably just remember a circle above the word mark with a few glyphs in it. I don't think I'd really remember the actual jigsaw concept. I feel like that's because the actual logo is more of an illustration than a logo. There's so many details in there, such as all the different glyphs in all the different pieces, the fact that there's a bevel on every single edge of the jigsaw, and you can also see some of the inside of the back jigsaw pieces through the gaps in the front, which is a lot of detail for a logo that's used pretty small on the web page. I think the logo would definitely look at home used large on the front of a paper encyclopedia, but I feel like Wikipedia is much more exciting and modern than that. So for this project I wanted to simplify and modernise the logo, focusing less on the encyclopedia aspect and more on the concept of constantly growing and evolving data or information sharing website that it is. In my very first phase of sketching I started thinking about using jigsaw pieces, but then I realised that I don't think I've ever seen a jigsaw piece related logo that I liked, as it's just way too cliche. So I started thinking along some different lines, creating the shape of a W using various different shapes to try and find some sort of double meaning in there. You'll see my sketching process here started playing around with ideas based on charts as a symbol of growth and sort of positive upward movement, building blocks, which is playing on the fact that Wikipedia is a constant work in progress and it's sort of built by its users, and just generally evolution. This is the modern day version of an encyclopedia, so thinking of ways to illustrate that. Got a few interesting shapes down there. I think in terms of my sketching I'm starting to develop the concepts a lot earlier. Spending a little bit more time on my sketching phase is paying off, as it saves me a lot of time in Adobe Illustrator after. So this is that little annoying bit of the video where I ask you to press like on the video, but only if you're enjoying it. Also, I'd appreciate it if you shared it with anyone that you think might find these videos interesting. Just share it with them and that will help the channel out as well. Anyway. For option 1, I wanted to symbolise progress and growth, so the idea was to create a growth chart that also made a W icon. All of this was created using rectangles and the snap to grid in Illustrator to keep it all neat and tidy and everything in line. Using the snap to grid in Illustrator helps me keep the thicknesses equal and the spacing equal, which helps just make the icon look a lot cleaner. To separate each piece I wanted gaps between each of the sections to make it look like it was folding over, but I didn't really like how this looked when it was on a white background, because the white, it looked like there was a white line running through it, which was kind of killing the W for me, or making it look really 3D depending on how I looked at it. It was kind of like an optical illusion. It felt a little bit messy, so by putting the shape inside a black circle it made it look cleaner somehow. I recreated the arrow just to make sure it aligned with the bar perfectly, and then just fiddled around with the width of that just so it looked neat and tidy. And then I used that bursting out the top right of the circle just to add a little bit of visual interest and also to emphasise the constant growth of the information on Wikipedia. For the next option I wanted to create something that symbolised the building of data. I've drawn out an idea in the sketchbook where we have 4 boxes, and inside these are 4 different stages of a W building. So it's kind of like if you was animating it growing in, it's like 1 arm, then 2 arms, then 3, and then 4 in the final box, just to symbolise the growth of the data in the Wikipedia system. I tried a few variations of this idea, but I wasn't really sure it was working, so I decided to look at other ways of showing a building concept. I went down the route of creating classic building blocks to see if I could create a big bold W from the bricks, but again I didn't really like the look of it once it got going. It was just looking a little bit ugly and a little bit basic. So I made a grid out of lines in Illustrator. I made sure it was all equally spaced so it created little squares in between the lines. Once I've made the grid I overlaid that onto a capital W and then used the Pathfinder command to cut that into little pieces. Now that the W was cut into individual pieces I was able to move these parts around and make it look like some parts of the logo were unfinished, which is kind of a nod to the old logo. They had jigsaw pieces missing. I thought maybe we can have some of the blocks missing, or maybe we can have them just offset a little bit to kind of imply motion, like they're whizzing in, like it's data whizzing in. As Wikipedia is a free encyclopedia collaboratively written by the people who use it, I wanted option 3 to play on the user submitted aspect of the website. I started by using 2 triangles to create a big solid W icon, and then I put 2 circles on top of them in the center of both triangles to kind of make a really simplified human shape. I tried using some transparency to show the overlap and integration, but then I decided against it because it's very difficult to make just a black and white version when you start introducing transparency. So instead of the transparency, I decided to use a solid line between the two, which broke off this 3rd triangle in the middle, which I just thought might symbolize perhaps a really loose handshake, or maybe it's just transferring data, or it's just a way of showing overlap, so it doesn't just look like 2 people that are joined together at the shoulder. When I was putting the icon next to the text, I just felt like it could do with a little strap line. So I decided on learn, share and grow, because I thought people go on there to learn. The whole concept of this logo is sort of the sharing aspect of it, the fact that it's the user submitted information that ends up on the website, and grow is basically when you're learning and sharing, you're growing, so I thought that could work quite well. For option 4, I wanted to play on the fact that this is an online encyclopedia by including a book icon, and then perhaps like a globe icon in there as well. And the idea behind that is to kind of show a world of information, which, yes, I know is cheesy, but I think if we pull it off in a very simple style, it could look good. I had a few sketches in the sketchbook showing a globe icon with a W in the middle. I started drawing out various globe icons, but none of these were getting particularly exciting on their own, so I started developing up an icon that looked like a book laying down. As this developed, I liked the direction of the book and the concept of something popping up behind it, so I tried some other things popping up from behind the book, making sure the fixed solid look was retained by making sure my line thicknesses are the same, my spacing was the same as the line thickness, or if just sometimes you have to visually adjust that, but I was just making sure that this was going to work down at a small size. And then I was playing around with a few different ways of showing the text. When I started putting the W behind it with the circle behind and the sides were lining up, I started thinking it looked a little bit too much like a tombstone or something like that, so I had to think about stuff like that whilst developing this. When I was working on option 1 with the chart, I had another idea which was kind of like the chart, but instead of having the actual arrow going up and down like that, it would all be on the same baseline with the same top line as well. But each section would have like one more stripe. So I started around playing with something like that, and I thought at first it was looking a little bit old-fashioned, but I kept developing it because I felt like it had some sort of potential. I felt like maybe if I just put it inside a black box or a circle, something like that, I just knew something was going to come out of it that I would like. The idea behind this was the left-hand side read into the right-hand side. It's kind of developing, growing, so I thought this was an interesting way of showing the evolution and growth of information on the Wikipedia website by having that 1 stripe, then 2, then 3, then 4. Wikipedia don't have loads of branding all over their website, but it is something that you could use if they redesign their whole website as well. You could just keep that going bigger and bigger and bigger from left to right, and that might be quite a cool little graphic element to include in the branding. I thought this idea was quite a cool way of showing growth without being as cliche as using an actual chart. So just before I show you the final options, I wanted to remind you to vote in the poll. There's a little I button in the top right of your screen, and if you click that, the 5 options will come up and you can vote for your favourite. Leave me a comment if you want to let me know what you think of the designs, and I read through all of them and get back to all of them. Remember to press like if you like the video, press subscribe if you want videos like this every single week, and put the little bell on if you don't ever want to miss any. So then, Rebrand gang, here are our final options.